I participated in some timed drawing sessions, and in this video, I'll show you what I painted and tell you about my experience. It was really fun, and the group was very friendly and welcoming. The sessions were hosted by Odd Orange. I'll link to them below if you're interested in checking them out. I did the first session by watching a recording rather than joining a group live because I felt a little nervous and I just wanted some experience before I jumped in with a live group. There was no need to be nervous. It was totally up to each individual whether you wanted to share or have your mic or camera on, so there was no reason to be nervous. The theme of the first session was People in Action. The host shared each reference and gave varying amounts of time for us to make each illustration. Not that it mattered, but I was really bad at doing the drawings in the amount of time given. I definitely want to try it again and respect the times a little more. There aren't any rules or anything like that, but to my way of thinking, if we're given 7 minutes for one illustration and 13 minutes for another, then the 13-minute illustration should be much more detailed than the 7-minute illustration. But what I seemed to keep doing is take the same amount of time for all of them and then use the leftover time during the longer segments to add more detail to the shorter segments. You'll see when I get to my next theme, I did get a little better at having more sparse, simple styles in the short ones, which I actually really enjoyed, and I think is one of the big benefits from doing the timed session. My other big weakness, it happens to me all the time whether sessions are timed or not, is that I can't visualize how big a thing I can fit in a certain space. So for example, the woman holding the pots, in the reference it was the woman's whole body and she was carrying 5 pots on her head. I didn't mean to zoom in to the point where you can't see her legs below her knees and you can't see 2 of the 5 pots that are on top of her head. But that's all I ended up having room for. Nevertheless, I love how this first spread came out. I think the 3 inner ones came out the best, but I like how the whole spread looks all together. For the next session, I joined an online group live. The theme for this one was Under the Sea. So what were the benefits of completing timed illustrations with an online group? For one, I loved hearing the chit-chat from everyone as we sketched, and I really got a lot of inspiration from seeing people share what they created at the end. There was such a great variety of styles and approaches. I loved seeing how people handled the varying times too. For one illustration, I remember the artist going into a lot of detail in one section of the illustration and then leaving out the details in the other sections, and it looked really cool as a finished illustration. It was really intriguing to have had the same amount of time and have the same references, but then see all the different approaches and results. Another benefit was all the practice I got done in a relatively short block of time. No need to come up with an idea, gather references, and plan out a spread. We could just jump right in and get going. Time was ticking. Keen-eyed viewers might spot that there was not enough room at the top for the crab's claws, but maybe that crab has really little claws. Who's to say? I loved Under the Sea as a theme. There was such a variety of colors and shapes and organisms. And I also really liked putting in the water background as a way to unify the spread. I don't know if I'll use watercolor again. Once I finished my first spread, everything was still wet, so I couldn't flip to a new page in my sketchbook. I hadn't really thought that through ahead of time, but I did a couple illustrations on separate pieces of paper and then I glued them in later. I also, as a left-hander, should have worked from right to left, but I didn't, so I smeared the still wet paint quite a few times. I'll have a better game plan for the next one. This little tetra was one of my favorite illustrations to work on. I zoomed kind of way in on the reference on purpose this time, and the fish was hiding among other little creatures in a reef. So I liked how it's sort of poking out there. I switched to some water-based markers for this part, and the tubes became kind of a blurry, wet mess, but I eventually did like how I added the colors. I also really liked this shark. It was in sort of a silhouette as seen from below, and I really loved how I used some purple for one part of the shark and then some blue for another, and the watercolor just bled together in a pretty pleasing way, as watercolor likes to do. The reference had these really pretty shafts of light going through the water, so that was fun to try to portray as well. And here I go portraying some gigantic lobster claws with a tiny bodied lobster. I'll work more on it next time. But it was pretty liberating though to go in right with fine liner or colored pencil without sketching it first in pencil and erasing it. So I enjoyed this a lot. And this final spread was where I got a little better sticking to the times that were given. This lobster stayed quite simple without very many details, and I did really like too the way the orange or red kind of blended with the yellow. This sea turtle was one of my favorites. I kept it extremely simple and it was a short amount of time. And I liked how I put a few little details on its face, but then kept most of it very minimal in the amount of detail. And that one kind of finally made sense to me, having a shorter amount of time and doing more of a quick impressionistic sketch. And then the final creature was a beloved octopus. I always enjoy drawing octopuses. And just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, it's an octopus. So that was a really fun way to end. I did fill in the water background on my spreads after everything had a chance to dry. I really enjoy this and I appreciate your watching. Please give a like or a comment if you enjoyed it. And I encourage you to give the Odd Orange sessions a try. Take care.